Almost every couples therapist, every relationship book, and every podcast will tell you the same thing. Express your feelings. Use I feel statements. Tell your partner how you feel, and like most, you've probably tried that, and you're still having the same fight. Well, here's why. The feeling isn't the problem. What's underneath it is. I'm Russ Palmer, and I build operating systems for relationships. Last time we talked about what your nervous system is doing to your marriage. Today, we're going underneath the hood of emotion to look into the meaning your brain is making in the middle of conflict. Traditional couples therapy often walks through emotions by slowing down and validating the feelings involved. One partner might be angry, so they take the time to explore and give space to that anger. Now, I want to be clear here. I am not against exploring emotions. This approach can be very helpful. However, in practice, the partner who is triggered tends to receive the most time and emotional energy, while the other partner mostly remains an observer. They watch and develop their own internal story, and by the time the emotion is fully processed, the other partner may have checked out or built a case or become so deep in their own primal state that nothing really registers anymore. So what's important here is understanding that the emotion is simply the alarm, and we need to find the fire. What I use with couples is something I call emotional sequencing. The concept is pretty straightforward. Every emotion has a layer beneath it. The feeling you're expressing on the surface is almost never the true issue that's driving your behavior. Now, anger is the most common surface emotion during relationship conflicts. It's loud, it's powerful, it feels justified, but anger is almost always a secondary emotion. It hides something more vulnerable underneath. So instead of camping out in anger, we follow it down. And here's how it works in a live session. A partner storms in, angry, furious, in fact. Their spouse forgot again to follow through on something they've discussed again. Now, instead of spending too much time processing the anger, I ask one question. What would be worse than feeling angry right now? They think about it. I got to tell you, they're often puzzled. They finally come up with something like, embarrassed. I guess I'd feel embarrassed. Okay, and what does being embarrassed mean to you? Again, they'll pause. Well, it means I'm not important enough to remember. And there it is, beneath the anger, embarrassment. Beneath the embarrassment, a core belief about their own worth in this relationship. It's not an anger problem. It's not even a communication problem. That's a meaning problem. And no amount of I feel statements are going to get you there. Now, here's where it gets interesting. While that's happening, while one partner's carrying around, I'm not important enough to remember, what's their partner actually experiencing? Well, in most cases that I witness, they're completely unaware. Not indifferent or neglectful, just operating from a completely different normal. What feels like a minor oversight to them, a 2 on a scale of 10, registers as an 8 to the other partner's core identity. That gap between what something means to you and what it means to your partner is where most relationship damage occurs. Not from bad intentions, but from invisible meanings. Now, I call this the conflict of two normals. Two people with genuinely different thresholds, wiring, and histories, colliding without either being wrong, just untranslated. Once we excavate the meaning, once both partners can see what's actually underneath the emotion, something really shifts. Not because we fixed anything, because we finally understood something. The partner who forgot says, I had no idea this touched something that deep inside of you. I didn't forget because you don't matter. You matter more to me than anything. I just didn't know what forgetting meant to you. Now, that's not a communication technique. That's an empathy built on real information. And in that moment, that specific moment, this is where repair actually begins. Not in the feeling, in the meaning underneath it. Now, I want you to consider the last conflict you had in your relationship. One that kind of keeps resurfacing. One you've discussed, processed, shared the feelings about, and it's still there. Now, I want you to ask yourself, do you actually know what that conflict means to your partner at the deepest level? Not what they say about it, but what it really means. What story are they telling themselves when it happens? And does your partner know that about you? Because if the answer is no, You haven't had the real conversation yet. You've been having a surface, emotional one. Here's what I want you to try this week. Next time you feel a strong emotion in your relationship, before you express or react, ask yourself one question. What would be worse than feeling this right now? Follow that answer down one level, just one. You don't need to go all the way to the bottom all by yourself, but that one question will start revealing what's truly driving your emotional responses. And that awareness is the start to real change. Then, when you're both calm and not in the middle of a conflict, share what you've discovered with your partner. Not as an accusation, but as information. I realized something about myself this week, and I want you to know whatever that is. That conversation will benefit your relationship more than 6 months of discussing your feelings. Emotions aren't the enemy. They're simply the messengers. But we've been so focused on what they say that we forgot to ask what sent them and why. And that's the work. Finding what's beneath the surface, building a relationship where both partners know each other on that deeper level, not just the surface level or the history, but the true meaning. The operating system. That's what lasts. If this resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to know. Or go to thewayofcoupling.com, and I'll see you next time. And don't forget to subscribe if this is the kind of conversation you want more of.